Hello, how are you today? So glad you've joined me. You know, an author's talent, important as it is, isn't enough to have successful book sales. Can that even be true? Yes, I'm sorry to say that it is. There are six phases of book publishing. Breaking the whole into parts reduces the overwhelm. Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, the Christian Message Coach, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews to help Christian writers and speakers take their message online. This is episode number 113, The Six Steps to Successful Book Sales with author Kathy R. Green. Hello, Kathy. How are you today?
Hello, Patricia. I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a real treat to have you. You describe yourself as a prayer general. So now tell me, Kathy, what does that mean to you? And as a member of your audience, what would that mean to me?
Well, a prayer general, that's a title that other people gave me. Friends and prayer partners that know me, that have prayed with me over the years, they said, Kathy, you're a prayer general because I know prayer strategies. And I've been praying for a very long time, since I was a child, to be exact. And I've dealt with a lot of spiritual warfare. And so when you've dealt with a lot of spiritual warfare over the years, you learn how to battle and how to, really pray effectively so that the enemy doesn't take, authority over you. You want to have authority over him.
That's right.
And so that's what the prayer general title came from.
You are speaking my language because I'm a very strong proponent of intercessory prayer and spiritual warfare, the principles of it. So how did you learn so much about that, Kathy?
I learned from just practicing, from actually praying every day. Like I said, from childhood all the way till today, and I'm not going to give my age, but I've been praying for over 40 years. And prayer is really life to me. It really is, because I can't let a day go by without spending time with God and just praying and listening for his voice to get instructions and directions about life. And so that's really how I got into prayer, from childhood all the way to this point.
And don't you find that Christ draws people to you that need that gift?
Yes, all the time. Sometimes it's overwhelming because of the amount of prayer requests I get, or people that want me to pray with them over the phone, and it can be a little overwhelming. And it's interesting because that's one of the clues that God is kind of giving me a little bit of a nudge, saying it's time for you to go out there and do more in this area, because instead of reaching one person at a time, I can reach many.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, perfect segue. For over 15 years, you were a children's and a youth ministry leader. Then God called you to write, and you've authored 3 books. We're going to talk about them shortly. Starting in 2010, and the third one's going to launch next 2 months from now.
Yes.
You're also a publishing consultant. We're going to talk about that, and a member of a very prestigious Christian Women's Association. You've appeared on TV and radio. We're going to cover all those things. Is that all right?
Wonderful. I love it.
Then later, when we get nearer the end, we're going to talk about the 6 steps. That's got so many S's in it. I'm stumbling over it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the successful sales. We'll leave it at that. So now, after releasing your first book, you discovered a large mass on your thyroid. Tell us about that time, please.
Okay. I really feel like when you write a book, especially if the Lord has given you a command, he said, I want you to write this book. I write Christian nonfiction, and so it's very biblically based and filled with scripture. And I've noticed that the enemy tries to come against me either when I'm writing or before or after. And so as soon as I released the first book, I had a couple of routine tests done, because I always go for an annual physical, and various tests are taken. And when I returned home, I noticed that I was having trouble swallowing. And so that sent me back to my doctor, and I said, I'm having a little trouble swallowing. I don't know what's going on. And so he sent me to an endocrinologist who did a test and discovered that I had a very large mass on my thyroid on the right side. And so maybe about 6 or 7 months later, after a lot of extensive testing, I went in for thyroid surgery, and they removed the mass. And in the process, when I woke up from the surgery and the doctor said this was a very difficult procedure because of the size of the mass, and she said, how do you feel? You probably feel really bad, because I had to do a lot of digging to get everything. And so when I went to talk, I had no voice, or it just sounded horrible, like I had a terrible case of laryngitis. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, what's wrong with my voice? And so she told me it should clear up in a few months. But the short of that story is that 4 years later, it took me 4 years to get to where I am today, because they discovered that I had a paralyzed vocal cord.
Oh, so there are two problems.
Yes. The mass was removed, and then I was left with a paralyzed vocal cord. And so it's interesting, because I share my story in my new book that's coming out in a couple of months. That's what the whole book is about, Meet Me in the Valley, because when I was going through that terrible 4-year valley experience, the Lord began to deal with me about some things, because I wondered, why, being that I'm called to teach the body of Christ about prayer, would something happen to my voice and I can't even be heard? And I really struggled and battled with that. And so the Lord really dealt with me. And that's all in the book.
Yay! When I invited you to join me, I was wondering how, and we talked about this a moment ago, I was wondering how your audio would sound.
Yes.
But you sound completely normal. Your audio sounds perfect.
That's a testimony that's in the book about how my voice was restored. And it's really miraculous. Yeah,
Okay,
God really worked a miracle. But I won't tell what it is.
Exactly. And you thought at that time, that there was the end of your potential ministry then?
Well, I did. And I felt like it was the end of the ministry, because nobody can hear me. There were many days that my voice was at a whisper, and I thought, nobody can hear me. And I would be on these prayer calls, and I was saying to the Lord, nobody can hear me. Why am I on these calls? And he said, well, who are you praying to anyway? Because I can hear you just fine. Yes. And so, he did such a deep work in my heart, and taught me that it's not about me. Just be obedient, do what he tells you. And so I'm kind of like the story of the 10 lepers. As they went, they were healed. As I continued on my journey of writing and speaking and helping people get published, I was healed on the journey, but I couldn't stop. And there were so many days I wanted to give up and never use my voice again. There were many embarrassing moments. People would stare at me and wonder, what's wrong with you? People would say, speak up. Nobody can hear you. I mean, I went through so much, and God just healed me as I continued on my journey. So even though I was tempted to give up, I couldn't give up. He wouldn't let me give up.
When he has a gift and he has a message, we're the only wild card, aren't we?
Yes. That's right.
Let me check Facebook and see what's going on over here.
Yeah.
I believe I saw Marshall Brandon's name. Oh, yes. Yes, Marshall Brandon says, thanks for sharing today, Kathy. Looking forward to your book. I know the miracle. You couldn't sing, and now you can.
Yes.
Nice.
Thank you.
And let me check. Let me refresh the other. And how did your husband deal with this? How did he help you deal with it during this? 4 years is a long time, as you well know.
It's a long time. My husband is so wonderful. I feel like I have the best husband in the world. He's amazing. He is always a voice of encouragement and a voice of strength. When I was discouraged, when I just didn't want to do anything and I just wanted to give up and just seal my lips and not even talk, he would encourage me. He would say, come on, honey, you've got to keep going, and so, yeah, he was fine with it. And I would always say, I sound so terrible. My voice is so unpredictable, because literally when I would open up my mouth to speak, I never knew what sound, tone, or pitch my voice would be in. And so I was embarrassed. And he would say, honey, to me, you sound just fine. So, he was great. He really was.
It sounds like y'all are a really good team.
Yes, very good team.
Mm-hmm. How lovely.
33 years of marriage. You mesh together and you really become one over 33 years.
Yes.
God does a lot of working in both of us. And then, it's like you're just one. But it is a process.
That's a good report.
Yeah.
Not everyone can say that. So we are so grateful that
Yes.
we were both able to say that. Thank you, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move to your website because I want to tell you that the photographs on your website are lovely.
Thank you so much.
They're beautiful.
Thank you. My daughter-in-law, who's married to my son, her name is Myra. She actually took my pictures. She's not a professional photographer or anything, but she's just so gifted naturally with so many creative things. And so I said, come on, let's take some pictures. And so thank you so much. I'll make sure to tell her.
They're really beautiful. You are beautiful, and then she's got that setting and the lighting and it's just all works, and it's just perfect. It's just perfect.
Thank you so much.
When you've got 3 books, one is coming out, and that's going to be, you're currently pre-selling that on your website.
Yes.
Along with your first book.
Yes.
We've got, and you tell me, Prayers Bear Fruit.
Prayers Bear Fruit.
For me? And help us understand that book, please.
Okay, Prayers Bear Fruit, Become a Person of Prayer. This was my first book, and
hold it up just a little bit some more so we can hide it, there we go. Isn't that beautiful?
This is my original first copy, so it's all crinkled around the edges and it's all highlighted inside, and yeah, so much. But this book was a labor of love, and when God told me he wanted me to write, I took my time. I didn't have a sense of a deadline or a goal in mind, and so it took me probably a good 11 years because I played with it. And so finally, when I got serious about the book, I was able to finish. And it's really a book to help people to understand that when you are a person of prayer, you are going to see results. You're going to bear fruit. Your life is going to reflect that you're a person of prayer because of the results and the way that your life is and the way that God blesses you. Because we really can't do anything aside from prayer. And so the book is almost like a prayer manual or a prayer guide. It helps to walk a person through the very process of becoming a prayer. And it starts with understanding that there's change. We need change in our lives. I wrote that book because I was desperate for change. That's what gave me the message for the book. I was desperate for change. My marriage was dead, and it was year 13. And I began to pray, and I prayed without ceasing. And when I realized there was a change, I thought that the change needed to take place in my husband, but God showed me, you need to change too. And he would point back at me. And when I changed, the miracle happened in my husband. And so it talks about it's time for change, and there's so many wonderful chapters in this book. I even do a chapter on the Lord's Prayer, where I break it down into very practical ways to understand it. And Don't Touch Me, It Hurts. That's another chapter where the Lord spoke to my heart one day while I was in the kitchen, and he said, Kathy, my people are hurting, but they won't get close enough to me to allow me to heal them of their wounds. Yes. I was healed in God's presence during times of prayer. It was miraculous because as I continued to go into prayer day after day, asking the Lord what I wanted him to do in my marriage and my family, I was transformed in the process. And my heart was healed. And so Don't Touch Me, It Hurts really helps the reader to understand you've got to get close to God. If you want to be healed, if you want your circumstances to change, it's going to happen through your prayer life. Yes. And so that's just a couple of chapters of that book.
That's good, deep wisdom right there, Kathy.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So now you've got the 3. One's coming out in 2 months in October. That is
Meeting in the Valley.
The other two, one is on your website on the shop page. And viewers, I'm going to put the links.
Here it
I'm
is.
going to put the links to all these books, including Come, the book Come, which is on Amazon. So there's a couple of different links. I'm going to put those all up above the video after the episode. But tell me, Kathy, on your marketing strategy, 2 are on your website. 1 is on Amazon. How are you working? How does that play into your marketing strategy?
Now, all of the books are on my website because I feel like authors should have an author website, first of all, and then their books should be available on their website. But then also, especially Prayers Bear Fruit, I had like worldwide distribution. It was on so many websites. When it first came out, I did a Google search and I was shocked to find out, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, ChristianBooks.com, everywhere. And so I leverage every opportunity. When you have your book published through a publishing house, they're going to send it through the distribution channel, which is going to put it on those websites and make it available. And so I had a lot of Barnes & Noble book signings where the books were actually on the shelves at Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. And my local Barnes & Noble was so wonderful that the books stayed on the shelves for 2 years. They couldn't keep them on the shelves. And I did multiple book signings with them, and they even gave me an end cap where all of my books were on the end of the Christian nonfiction inspiration aisle, and I just couldn't believe it. I would go over there and take pictures with that all the time.
Of course. I
was so amazed. But I try to get the books available as many avenues and platforms as possible.
Okay. That story, as you well know, is very rare to have that kind of an end cap at Barnes & Noble. Come on now.
It was the favor of God, because that doesn't happen.
No. That's beautiful. Let me check and see if we have any other comments or questions. Sometimes I have to refresh the page before I get that information.
Okay.
There we go. All right, none there. Let me go over to my profile and see what Janice Hall Heck. Janice Heck says, hey, Kathy. Hey, Patricia.
Hi, Janice.
It's so good to see you, Janice. Thanks for joining us today.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're also a publishing consultant. You told me that books are like babies. Bringing them into the world is just the beginning. Yes. I like that expression.
Absolutely. Books are very much like babies. We carry them in our hearts. We write them from our heart, and then we birth them. When they're published, they're actually birthed into the world, into the book market, the trade. And so we are responsible for our children that we birth, and so we're also responsible for our books. Yeah. And so we can't just write the book and have it published and then we walk away as if the book doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. If we take that approach, it will flop. There will be no success. You won't reach the people that you wrote the book for. It'll just go flat. And so we are responsible for these babies that we birth, to tell as many people as we can about them through speaking engagements, through our website, through blogging, through social media. We are responsible to take that book. And I say, even though Pray-ers Bear Fruit has been around since 2010, it's still going forth. It's still being sold. People have read this book 3 and 4 and 5 times because it's full of the word, first of all, and it's just a tool that they say, I need to read Pray-ers Bear Fruit again. Mm-hmm. And so books, as long as they're in print, they're like babies that we have to look after. We have to be responsible for what happens to our books.
Yes, and continue to market them.
Yes, that's right.
So now you do some of this, or you teach this. Tell us what you do as a book consultant, please.
As a publishing consultant, I meet with authors, a lot of local authors, and even some drive in from out of town. And we have one-on-one consultations, or I meet with them. I hear their heart about what they're writing or what their book idea is, or maybe they're going through the writing process and they're stuck, or they're almost finished and they say, does this make sense? Can you help me? Most times when you're a first-time author, you don't have a clue about what to do. Where do I go? Which publisher is the right publisher for me? And how do you know? And so that's where I come in. I like to, look at the genre of the book, read a few chapters, if you will, or the whole entire book if they want me to do that. And then I can determine what would be a good fit as far as a publishing company. Sometimes it's a self-publishing situation where they may go on Amazon CreateSpace, or they may work with one of my publishing partners, or maybe it's something that they say, well, I'm very determined that I want to be traditionally published. Mm-hmm. And so that's a whole nother ball game, as you know. So there are so many avenues, and I just try and help to, give information, inform, and train and teach and help authors to understand what the, writing and publishing process is all about. Because I didn't know anything, Patricia. I knew nothing, and I didn't know one published author. And so I had to do all my research, and I had to do everything from sending in my first book proposal. I did it all myself. I even wrote my own copy for the book. Didn't even know what I was doing.
Uh-huh. So you didn't go to a writer's conference and meet people there?
Pardon?
You didn't go to a writer's conference and meet people?
I had never been to a writer's conference ever. Nothing. God really led me through the process. And I think that because I didn't know anything and I was so dependent on him, I learned so much to the point where when the book was published, it was accepted at a major publishing house with one try.
Whoa.
One attempt.
Whoa.
Such a miracle. But the things that I learned when that book was published, people just began to come from everywhere and say, Kathy, will you help me? And that's how I became a publishing consultant, because so many people approached me for help and I was willing to help them.
So whether they're indie, whether they're traditional, or whether they are self-published, you are the intermediary, you can be the intermediary to help them both understand the process and break it down into chunks, which we're fixing to talk about in a moment.
Yes.
And then do you walk through them through the entire, because you're not an agent, right? Is that right?
I'm not an agent.
So you just help them prepare, and then do you hand them off, or do you continue working with them, Kathy, as they move on?
I do hand them off, but over the years, I've been a, what's the name of it? My mind went blank. It's the person that takes them through the process. There are a couple of different roles that I've played over the years in the publishing industry. And so I have been that person that walked with them from the time the manuscript was turned in to the time it went to print. I've done that role, and production manager. I've been that. I mean, just, I have a lot of experience with a lot of different jobs or positions in the publishing world.
It sounds like it. So you can basically do whatever it is that they need you to do, it sounds like. Is that right?
I can. And if I can't, I know people that can. I know where to send them. But now as a consultant, I just help them with that initial first step of getting the manuscript to where it needs to be, where they can submit it for publishing. And at that point, I kind of hand them over to the publisher.
So that's your sweet spot right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let me
I've
check.
done some editing as well, and that's not something I really enjoy. It's so tedious. I mean, oh my gosh, looking line by line, and oh my gosh, that's not something I enjoy. Like your guest yesterday, I said, oh my gosh, I need her, because editing, that's not something I
it's not your cup of tea. If you're watching today and you didn't get a chance to watch yesterday, Kathy's talking about author Dawn Kinzer, Kinzer. She is a writer, an author, and also is a great editor, and lots of people sang her praises yesterday. So let me check. I think we've got some more visitors over here. Let's see. Jessie Marie, great big hello to both of us, she says. Miss Kathy, it's always a pleasure to hear your wisdom.
Oh, hello.
How nice. How nice. Let me see. Marshall, I covered Marshall. Katie Androsky has joined us. Hey, Katie. Thanks for being here. Now, let's talk quickly about Christian Women in Media Association. That's a big, long title.
Yes.
This is for people who are very accomplished in the media world. They're Christian women. Tell us about that, please.
I love Christian women in media. They are my tribe, my village. I think I've been in the organization about 5 or 6 years, maybe 5 years. A dear friend who's an author, I helped her get her first book published. She invited me to an event here in Dallas. And when I walked in, I just knew, I said, okay, this is the place for me. These women are doing great things. And it's really not women that are accomplished only. It's also for people who want to be authors, who are writers, who are just getting started. They're welcome as well. Ooh. And so you're going to surround yourself with women that are doing what you do or what you want to do. And it's wonderful fellowship, networking, sisterhood, friendship. And there's so much education. You know, you're going to learn things because we have media seminars. And it's just wonderful. If you ever have a question or need something, you can call a sister, call a friend. And there's no sense of competition among us. And that's one of the things I love. The founder and president, her name is Sue Ellen Roberts. I think you know Sue Ellen. She is so wonderful as a leader because everything about Christian women in media was birthed out of prayer. And we have 2 weekly prayer calls. One is for the board of directors, which I'm on the board. And then the other call is for all of our members. And we get on just for 30 minutes and we pray together. And it's just wonderful.
And there are 16 chapters that meet 4 times a year. So we're not talking about something that's really going to add another thing on our to-do list, are we?
No. We have 16 chapters, and so we just expanded to these 16. We had 6, and just this year, we've expanded to 16, and we're going to have our next event on September 20th. And the website is cwima.org, where you can go on and see if there's a connect in your city and actually join us at one of these events because they are wonderful. They are wonderful.
It sounds wonderful, and I did not realize that. I saw some of the names of some of the members, and we're talking about people who are extremely accomplished. So I got the impression that I needed to be at that level.
No.
But I'm so glad you phrased it so well.
Mm-hmm.
If you are here at this stage, or you want to be at this stage,
yes,
you are welcome. And viewers, I'll also put that link. I've already got my links already pulled together. I'm going to pop them up above the video just as soon as this episode is over. Babby Mason only lives a half an hour from me.
I know Babby. I just saw her at our Global Media Summit. She was in my writer's class that I taught.
Oh, that you taught her. That's cool.
I looked out and I said, oh my gosh, Babby's here.
Well, she doesn't know me from Adam, but it's just fun. You're somebody who's so well respected.
Yes. And she actually was a singer. She led us in praise and worship each morning. And oh my gosh, she's so amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now you know so much about the steps of publishing, the stages, and they interact. They weave one into the other. They're not isolated steps.
Right.
But you're going to go over those with us today. And the very first step is having the concept for the book itself, and then we go right to writing.
Yes.
Can you go through those steps? Do you need me to prompt you?
No. What happens is that, first of all, you're going to start with a vision or a concept of what you want to write about. And God usually prompts me some kind of a way. I just have a desire in my heart, or, I just feel like he's leading me in that direction. Like "Meet me in the valley" was a phrase that I heard him speak to my heart. And I just knew he wanted me to turn it into a book and share my testimony and other biblical examples of those who have walked through the valley. And so once you know what you want to write about, it may be a testimony, it may be a devotional, it may be nonfiction, a story of something that you've created. It may be, like I write, nonfiction, books on prayer. All of my books are on prayer. And so it's interesting how God will start me with one little phrase, like "prayers bear fruit." That was one phrase. And then I had to go back and develop it. And the way that I developed it was through prayer, actually spending time in prayer. And I kept either a napkin, a notebook, a journal, or something by my bed or in the car, because I was always getting little phrases and things that would develop into chapters. And so the writing process is a very important process, but you've got to start with knowing what you want to write about. And then you actually, create a schedule for yourself and begin to write the book. And I think it's good to have in mind a deadline, some kind of a deadline, because when I did the first book, I had no deadline. And so that's why it took forever. My second book, I said, I'm going to write this book as if I'm going to a job. And I would sit at my computer from 9 to 3, 5 days a week. And whether or not I had a wonderful flow of writing that day or nothing was coming, I still sat there. Because that was my discipline. And that book was written in 7 months. And so it was such a difference. So once the book is written, when you get ready to publish, I feel like You know, people don't understand that they should turn in their best work. They should read it or have someone else read it. They should edit it to the best of their ability, or maybe even have another person edit it. But some of the things that I see are so mumble jumble. I don't know what this is. Nobody wants to turn in anything like that because your chances of being published are very slim. Or you're going to pay a lot of money to bring that into what it needs to be. You'll have to pay for a developmental edit, copy edit, line edit, all of that. And so it's important to turn in your best work.
Yes. Just like always, right? In every area.
That's right. Do your best. Yeah. And so the writing, and then it goes into publishing. Most, publishers, they'll give you a timeline of what the process is all about. So like the first step of that publishing process, some people start with the cover design and they get the cover done right away. Sometimes that's later on in the process, and they'll go right into editing. The copy edit, the line edit, they'll go into editing. And then there's a layout of the book where it's got to be, laid out exactly like it's going to be when it goes to print. Proofreading, it's just so many steps. But that all goes underneath the publishing process. That's what the publisher takes care of. Now, when you self-publish, you're going to do all of that, or you're going to hire it out. I have a young lady that I worked with, and she, wanted to self-publish, which I said, fine, no problem. But as the journey continued, and it was so hard, it was so difficult, she called me because she was struggling. And I said, well, that's the difference in turning over your work to a publisher or doing it yourself. When you do it yourself, that means you're going to feel every part of the journey.
Yes.
Because you're taking it upon yourself. To hire the editor, to hire the cover designer, to hire someone to lay out the book, to hire someone to load it on to create, whatever it is, you're going to feel all of that. Yes. If the publisher has it, they take all of that, and they're the professional. They do that for you, and you just sign off on the edited version, on the cover design that they've already done. And so it's a big difference, in that, but it's all about whatever avenue you want to go. It's up to you. Yeah.
And is that, I know you're fixing to get to marketing here in just a moment, but is that part of what you do, is help people understand that process and walk them through it if they need it? And then you even mentioned that this publisher does it this way, but another publisher starts with the edits first instead of the book cover design. And since you know so many publishers, you can help them understand that process.
And that's exactly what I do. I try to find out what their goal is, what they're trying to achieve. Why are they writing this book? I really get into their heart to see, where's all of this coming from? Where's this desire? Because there are some people, sadly to say, that only want to write a book because someone else did it. And they want to write a book because this person did it or that person. It's really a calling. And it's something that should come from the heart, that God is leading us to do, because it's not for wimps. I mean, book writing and publishing is hard work. Yeah, it's tedious.
When we see television shows and they have an idea in the first part of the episode, and before the episode is over in an hour, then they've got a contract, and they're well on their way through the publishing process.
Yes. And it looks so glamorous, right?
Now, did we skip distribution, or are we coming to that?
That's coming.
Okay.
So once the book has gone through the publishing process, all of the steps that we've mentioned, and I probably forgot some, then what happens is that once you have your book in your hand, you cannot forget the book needs to be distributed, because if it's not available, say for instance, you have friends in other states, or maybe you're going to travel and speak in other states, people in other states and other places need to be able to get a hold of your book.
Right.
And so that's what distribution is. It's actually putting the books online at the various websites. It's also putting it into the bookstores, not just that it's going to be on the shelf, but that it's available through the bookstore. So if someone were to walk into Barnes & Noble and ask for this book, or ask for it by the ISBN number or whatever, they can type it up and see that it pops up on their screen. That means it's available, and they can order it into the store and you pick it up. Or maybe you order it online or whatever it is. That's what distribution is. It's getting the books out there so that they're available to the people that you wrote it for.
Can we talk? I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask, I know what an ISB number is, but let's say that there's somebody watching live or in the replay and they don't know what that is and how very valuable it is to have that attached to your self-published book. Can you run that through for us?
Yeah, really, it's an identification number. I'm going to just put it to you in simple terms, and it's this number back here. It gives your book its own identity, so that this number, whether it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your website, wherever it is, this is the way booksellers can determine, oh, that's that book.
Yes.
It identifies your personal book.
Of
And
all the books in the world.
Yes, of all the books in the world. And every book has its own ISBN number.
And yet it doesn't come automatically if you're self-publishing. That's a step that you have the burden of taking care of. You have to purchase it, and you come in a pack of, used to, they came in a pack of 10, or you could get one, and on and on and on. But if you're watching and you're considering self-publishing, this is absolutely one of those disguised needs that you won't know about until after your book is published, and then it's too late to attach an ISBN. So heed this warning.
That's right.
So let me run through these again. We've got concept is the first step to a successful sales. Concept, then writing, editing, whether we do it or we pay for somebody to do it, or the publisher does it. Then we have the actual publishing process, distribution, and then marketing. And marketing is a whole nother animal, isn't it?
Yes, because I have talked to so many authors that once the book has been written and published and they have the book in their hand, it's even in distribution, so it's available, then they kind of drop the ball. Or they think that it's the publisher's job to see to it that that book, as if someone has a horn and they're announcing, buy Prayers Bear Fruit. You know, nobody's going to do that. You have to have the responsibility. It's yours. It's the author's responsibility to market their message. God gave us the message, and so it's up to us to let people know that it exists. So even if you've done all of these wonderful things, by the time it gets to marketing, that means this is the way you're going to let people know that the book exists. It could be in distribution, it could be in the stores, on the websites and everything. But if nobody knows that, then it's not going to reach the reader. And so that's what marketing is. And it's so many creative ways to market the book. So many creative ways. But it's just an important step that we can't forget about. And we cannot look to anyone else and say it's the publisher's responsibility or it's that person's responsibility. No, it's ours. Because remember how I said books are like babies? We have to take care of them. So that marketing piece is a very important part of the process.
And there are a lot of authors. I know you meet writers who are like, I'm just not going to do that. Whether they say that with words or their attitude, or it's very subtle, and they just balk every time you talk about that or bring that up. But if the same God who called you to write that book, if you don't want to or you don't know how to, he will help you market that book.
Yes, he will.
But you still got to get out there, just like you said earlier. You got to do your part.
That's right.
Do you help people with that aspect, Kathy?
Oh my gosh. I had one author that I worked with, and she never, I don't think she had a book launch or a book signing. She did nothing. And she just said, I just felt like I needed to write my story. But then she did nothing with it. And I said, well, who's going to read it? This is a great book. You need to let people know. And so I encouraged her to have book signings and to get out there. And I think she started a blog and did some other things. But even if you just have a blog where you share your content through your blog, you could take just one little paragraph out of a chapter and do a blog post on it. There's so many ways that you can do it. But to do nothing is just equals failure.
Yes. We've got several comments. Let me go over here and see what they all are. Oh, my goodness. Let's see. I know that there's more there. I'm not sure why I can't see them just yet. Let me check over here. Let me refresh both of these while we.
Okay.
Now, viewers, if you're interested in working with Kathy, you remember, I've got her links all ready to go. As soon as this episode is over, I'm going to post them up. Sometimes, if you have commented and we haven't responded, it's because Facebook isn't cooperating today and they don't want me to see your comment. And there's nothing I can do. I'll see it after the show, which is a little bit maddening, but I can't control it. So, Kathy, can you stick around for a few minutes and engage?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me look over here on this. Nope. So we have lots of comments that I can see the number, but I cannot see the comment itself. And I apologize, but I can't do a thing about it.
And you know what? I'll also go on to Facebook and see if I can answer some things directly there.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I'd really appreciate that. And that would really help people too. Then there's a written record. That's a great idea. Okay. Thank you so much, Kathy, for joining me today.
Thank you.
You're very knowledgeable. I'm just giving you a heads up right now. I may invite you back to talk about this again.
Wonderful. I'd love it. Please do. Maybe after the book comes out.
Oh, okay. And that's October. Do you know the date yet in October?
I don't.
Okay. But still October.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be long. Won't be long.
Won't be long.
Viewers, thank you for joining us. This has been Marketers on a Mission, episode 113. I'm going to have to say it again. The 6 steps to successful book sales with author Kathy R. Green. Tomorrow, I'm going to be presenting a tutorial, your first 5 steps to becoming a speaker. Twyla Belka's going to join me. That'll be a treat. She's been a public speaker for decades, and she knows just a few things about being a public speaker. This show is designed with you in mind. We're here every weekday at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern to help you develop or refine your online marketing skills so that your message can spread the gospel around the globe for Christ. Until next time, I'm Patricia Durgan and Kathy Green. Thank you again, Kathy.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
See you right here tomorrow, everyone. Thanks for being here.